Now
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 6:06. It's O'Connor and Company this Thursday morning, post-Virginia election, post-Republican debate, post-Trump rally. But not post-sleep, unfortunately. It was a late night. This is the life we've chosen, though, Patrice Sanwuka.
Politics, man. Politics.
I am still in Miami after covering the debate on the ground last night. We played you some exclusive audio that we obtained. We'll try to get to some more as the morning goes on. Also at 6:35, Geary Higgins, who just won a seat in Northern Virginia, one of the victories yesterday. Tuesday, 7:05. Sean Spicer is going to sort of give his take on everything, to all the above. 7:35, Bob Anderson on his monumental victory as your new Commonwealth's attorney, getting rid of Buddha Bibarai. Honestly, Bob Anderson, the hero of the week. And at 8:35, Senator Katie Britt, who has a brand new book. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Patrice Sanwuka. You're all fired up and ready to go.
I'm ready. I watched the debate last night. I stayed up, and I was, maybe not disappointed.
Well, give me your Listen, here's the thing. We have to have a dose of reality as we discuss this debate. I'm a political junkie. I'm a political junkie, and I'm a conservative Republican, so I love it when our issues are talked about in an intelligent way, in a lengthy way, and I've got people who are representing those issues. That happened last night. The problem is the leading candidate for the Republicans wasn't there. And when you really look at it, did this debate make a difference? Did it matter? Well, it matters if you're a political junkie and you love hearing your ideas talked about. But did it matter in terms of who's going to be the nominee for president? Probably not.
No, I mean, last night was good for scoping out potential cabinet candidates, people who we can see in the next Trump administration, which is looking increasingly likely. So interestingly, I took a look at CNN. They actually tracked the number of minutes each candidate spoke. And on Twitter, I threw it up this morning. I wonder if it matches up with who people thought won the debate. So ranked number one with the...
just so you know, if you had asked me who do you think had the most speaking time, I would not have come up with this answer.
Well, exactly. The top person with 18 minutes and 53 seconds, 55 seconds. I'm getting old, folks. I can't see my screen.
Yeah, 55 seconds.
55 seconds was Tim Scott. He
Scott
was the leader.
I can't believe that Tim Scott had the most time in the debate to speak. 18 minutes, almost 19 minutes.
Well, when you think about his answers, he had a lot of time to speak during his answers, and he took every moment of it. He had fewer interruptions, I feel like, compared to some of the other candidates. Number two was Nikki Haley. She came in at 18 minutes and 2 seconds.
That's who I would have.
Actually, that's about right.
Yeah.
That's about right. She was in there. She was doing a lot of responses and a lot of defenses and offensive. Number three was Vivek Ramaswamy. He came in at just 17 minutes and 37 seconds. I actually thought he was going to be number one, because it seemed like he owned the stage in a lot of moments. At the bottom, well, it was only 5 candidates, obviously. So 4 was Ron DeSantis at 16 minutes and 19 seconds. And last but not least, Chris Christie was 16 minutes and 15 seconds. So just barely edging out, barely fewer seconds than Ron DeSantis. At this point, I think Chris Christie is a non-factor. Certainly, his only rationale for being in the race is to hit Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not showing up to take the arrows. So Governor Christie, I think he came across as, okay, I've done this before, kind of the no-nonsense guy, but it wasn't needed. People are not going to look for a no-nonsense guy, especially if they're choosing between him and the top guy, and his only rationale is, well, I hate that guy and I'm going to be the zingers against him. He had no zingers to fall back on, and it was a waste of time for him to be there.
I'll be honest. When Chris Christie, you're right. The only reason he's there is because he wants to stop Donald Trump and he wants to go after Donald Trump. I'm shocked now, after 3 debates, that it hasn't gone like this. Governor Christie, what do you think of inflation? Well, thanks for the question, but I'd rather talk about Donald Trump. So here's my time to and just spend all the time hammering Donald Trump. That's what I thought he was going to do, whether he's there in the room or not. But instead, he's just decided to be your traditional candidate and not be, do what he said he was going to. So what the heck is his point? He had his opportunity 8 years ago.
Well,
couldn't do it then.
Exactly. Now, don't forget, there were 2 candidates, in addition to Donald Trump, who were still in the race that were not on the stage. Has your Asa fever abated at this point, Larry?
I will always have Asa fever.
But listen. My larger point is it's time for some more cutting. We need to get Asa Hutchinson out of there. We need to get Doug Burgum out. We need to get Chris Christie out. And then I'm okay with those 4. Let's see who else falls by the wayside by Christmas time. I would be surprised if we don't lose at least 4 before the new year.
Well, it definitely seemed like it was the Nikki Haley Vivek Ramaswamy show last night, and let's play some other of the exchanges they had. Here's cut 10 is Vivek Ramaswamy talking about national security and, most importantly, overseas funding or overseas expenditures on American military excursions.
Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, got a $5 million bribe from Ukraine. That's why we're sending $200 billion back to that same country. The fact of the matter is the Republican Party is not that much better. You have the likes of Nikki Haley, who stepped down from her time at the UN. Bankrupt or in debt was her family. Then she becomes a military contractor. She joins the board of Boeing and otherwise, and is now a multimillionaire. So I think that's wrong when Republicans do it or Democrats do it. That's the choice we face. Do you want a leader from a different generation who's going to put this country first? Or do you want Dick Cheney in 3-inch heels?
All right, Mr.
In which case, we've got 2 of them on stage tonight.
Ramaswamy, thank you.
By the way, that last part got drowned out in the room. And
really?
We've got 2 of them on stage, of course, referring to Ron DeSantis, who apparently lifts in his boots. Nikki Haley had her chance to respond, and she did.
I wear heels. They're not for a fashion statement. They're for ammunition.
She also said, wait, was that cut 11? Oh, all right. She also said they're actually 5-inch heels, not 3-inch heels, and you should only wear them if you can run in them. How high do your heels go there?
My heels, I do about 3.85, 3.9.
Yeah,
Sometimes I'll hit a 4-inch. 5 is like 120 millimeters or something. Like it's crazy. It's
Later
crazy
on,
high.
moderator Hugh Hewitt, who was there, he's a talk radio host apparently, and he was there from the right of center perspective. They didn't let him speak much, but I do think he asked very substantive questions. Almost all of them were about the threat of China. One of them specifically had to do with TikTok. And Vivek Ramaswamy famously recently started a TikTok account, and he faced a lot of criticism about that because it is Chinese propaganda, it's manipulative, and it should be banned. So here's Vivek Ramaswamy on TikTok.
How do you get TikTok banned if you use it?
Well, I want to laugh at why Nikki Haley didn't answer your question, which is about looking at families in the eye. In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my daughter out of your voice.
Adult daughter. The next generation of Americans are using it. And that's actually the point. You have her supporters propping her up. That's fine. Here's the truth. The easy answer is actually to say that we're just going to ban one app. We got to go further. We have to ban any U.S. company actually transferring U.S. data to the Chinese.
That was
wow.
So almost universally afterwards from people who are pro-Vivek and or don't have a dog in the race, they all did think that it was a bridge too far to raise a candidate's child in the debate.
Well, but I'm going to push back. My initial thought was, that she shouldn't have gone there, but I thought about it. He should have, because that is exactly what the criticism, one of them, of Joe Biden is going to be, that his son Hunter Biden has been using the name to rip off, the nation, right? So and it's not like he was going after her daughter, who is an adult, by the way. She's not a minor.
Yeah.
She's a grown woman, married, and it's making a substantive plan. Like, hey, how can you be against TikTok and your daughter is for it? What's going on in your own household?
That was one of the big pushbacks on that was, listen, if we can't raise a candidate's child, then we can't talk about Hunter Biden. Of course, no one is accusing Nikki Haley's daughter of breaking federal crime. But yes, so we'll hear a little bit more about that exchange in a moment, and I want to highlight some of what Nikki Haley said in response.
WMAL. Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Later this morning on the Chris Plante Show, the RNC green-lighted the NBC News Republican debate without Trump. It was a humdinger. 9 a.m. on WMAL.
In the last debate, she made fun of me for actually joining TikTok while her own daughter was actually using the app for a long time. So you might want to take care of your family first.
Leave my daughter out of your voice.
Adult daughter.
Hold on. Did she just go Will Smith on Vivek Ramaswamy? Was it?
Yeah.
Did we almost have a Chris Rock slap?
Out your
Well, a sanitized version,
And
and without the slap.
But it was right there. Also, I don't know if you and I did miss this.
Yes.
When I was watching it again, in the room you get a different audio dynamic than watching it on television. I didn't catch this, but then during a break, one of our colleagues at Town Hall said, "Did you hear Nikki Haley called Vivek scum on the stage?"
She did.
And she said, "Here, listen.
Propping her up, that's fine. Here's the truth.
You're just
the easy
scum.
answer.
Wow.
You're just scum.
I mean, you have these political back and forths for people, but
that's
very
a
rarely.
natural reaction because she was hit personally, and frankly, as you know, as any parent feels, sometimes when you attack their child, then they become defensive. But you know what? I actually think it gives her even more color and personality. And she didn't use a curse word. She just called the man scum, and in that moment, that's how she felt he was. So
I'll tell you, I have tried to put myself in a position of, first of all, I have shown my bias. I have Asa fever. But beyond that,
yeah.
I've tried so hard to sort of, I am a Republican. I want the Republican nominee. Honestly, if Chris Christie gets the nomination, I'll support him. I really have tried to remove myself from this and just sort of observe it and try to find, call it as I see it, balls and strikes, all that jazz. Some of my colleagues, some of my dear friends and other people, they have such a visceral reaction to Vivek Ramaswamy on both sides. Some of my close friends absolutely loathe the man. They just hate him. I don't see it. Other people absolutely love him. He can do no wrong. There's something about Vivek Ramaswamy that just pushes people's buttons.
Well, and it's in the same vein that President Trump, people have very, polar views about feelings, not views, feelings about him. I think Vivek taps into that, whether you think of him as like brilliant and, a fast talker, but really smart, or just a fast talker car salesman, and that just turns you off. I think, and people either know someone who they went to college who was like him, and maybe that probably feeds into their personal viewpoints of Vivek.
Well, I'll tell you
I
this.
just love that he brought some fun to the stage last night. I got to admit.
Well, I'll tell you this. The comparison to Trump, I think, is apt in that, love him or hate him, Vivek Ramaswamy definitely gives voice to a significant part of the Republican electorate. And the Republican nominee, whoever they may be, needs to understand that there are votes there, and those are significant voices and opinions that should not be disrespected. He spoke about the excursion in Ukraine, and you're going to hear about that in just a moment, because I assure you, might not be the majority of Republicans, but it's a heck of a lot of Republicans who agree with him. And you'll hear that in a moment. It's 6:21. All right, last night, Vivek Ramaswamy going right after our current policy in Ukraine, and this, of course, is an issue that divides not just Republican voters, but the Republicans on the stage last night. Here, take a listen.
Mr. Ramaswamy, are you persuaded by President Zelensky's urgent new plea? Where do you stand on more funding?
I'm absolutely unpersuaded. And I'm actually enjoying watching the Ukraine hawks quietly, delicately tiptoe back from their position as this thing has unwound into a disaster. The first half of this race, I was the only person standing for it. Now they're actually quietly coming around to being more cautious, as they should. Level with the American people here. Ukraine is not a paragon of democracy. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties. It has consolidated all media into one state TV media arm. That's not democratic. It has threatened not to hold elections this year unless the U.S. forks over more money. That is not democratic. It has celebrated a Nazi in its ranks, the comedian in cargo pants, a man called Zelensky, doing it in their own ranks. That is not democratic. More facts for you that you won't hear from the mainstream in either party or the mainstream media. The regions of Ukraine that are occupied by Russia right now, in the Donbass, Luhansk, Donetsk, these are Russian-speaking regions that have not even been part of Ukraine since 2014, that other people probably couldn't name those provinces for you. Those are the hard facts. And so to frame this as some kind of battle between good versus evil, don't buy it. And I'd like the likes of the sharpest of the war hawks on Ukraine, Nikki Haley, to have some accountability and answer. Do you want to use U.S. taxpayer money to fund the banning of Christians? That is actually what's happening. They're using the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. They have banned them. The Ukrainian parliament just did this last week, supported by our dollars. And I think you owe it to the American people, Nikki, to at least this one time at least condemn.
Thank you. That's time.
At least to condemn their banning of Christians.
Mr. Ramaswamy, thank you.
All right. That's
All right, there you go.
I mean, again, not on the substance of the policy necessarily, but the fact that this is a position that is held by many, and frankly articulated on a regular basis by Tucker Carlson on his program, which
Sure.
it's a very popular opinion on whether we should continue to throw good money after bad at the Ukrainian effort.
Well, and it's going on Capitol Hill right now with Republicans in Congress who, are obviously trying to make sure that any Ukrainian funding is separated and voted on separately from any other funding.
Well,
so,
I've got good news
it's a
for you.
relevant point.
Good news for you. The entire Ukraine mess is going to be solved now because our Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, is in Kiev right now.
Oh,
there you
go.
Coming up next, Geary Higgins on his victory. Keep it here at 6:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:36. It's O'Connor and Company, and we are loaded for bear this morning as we continue our post-Virginia election analysis and fallout and reaction, as well as reaction to last night's debate and the Trump rally. Busy times if you're into American politics, and I'm glad you're here with us. Coming up at 7:05, Sean Spicer will join us on, well, all of that. Also at 7:35, Bob Anderson, one of the big winners Tuesday night, and we do like to focus on the upside of that election. Bob Anderson, your new Commonwealth's attorney, Bye-Bye Buddha. And then at 8:35, Senator Katie Britt will join us with her new book. I'm Larry O'Connor with Patrice Sonwuka.
Hey, good morning, Larry.
Rare Thursday appearance from Patrice.
I know. I do it once in a while.
We do. I mean, listen, there were a lot of disappointments Tuesday night.
Yes.
But there were a couple of great victories, and Geary Higgins is one of them. Of course, you know him as the former Loudoun County supervisor. And now, and he's doing his victory lap. There he is. Well, he should.
Good morning, Larry, and good morning, Patrice. Nice to be with you.
We've heard a lot of discussion, and of course, you know that district very well. You know Republican politics out there, Geary Higgins, Lord knows. What made your race different, do you think?
Well, I think that the demographics were a little different out there. I think the issues that people were concerned about were the issues that we were talking about, things like, parents' rights, getting the economy turned around, public safety, which is why Buddha is no longer with us, quality education, and those kind of things. So those those issues resonated in our area, and people were out to vote, and I was very gratified to be elected, and it was very humbling and to see some of the people that I had represented in the past on the Board of Supervisors really turned out strongly in those precincts and helped us do as well as we did.
Well, first off, congratulations, sir. And to dig into some of the things, one of the things you mentioned about parents' rights and accountability, parents need to know what's going on in the schools. Was that what you were hearing most when you were, knocking doors and talking to constituents? And what do you feel like can be one of your first steps once you, once you move into this position?
That was probably, people talked about a lot of different issues, but that was probably the most important issue, going door to door and talking to people. And it's sort of wrapped into three things. One is, certainly the parents' rights. People came to Loudoun County because we had an excellent school system, which the left has been trying to destroy for the last 4 years. And then, also public safety. And so those were the things that parents talked a lot about. And another issue that's woven into that, which is part of the parents' rights issue, is the business with children and parents being in the loop on what's going on in the schools with children and the gender identity stuff. I had lots of folks want to talk about that and make sure that I was going to protect women and women's sports in Loudoun County.
You talk about demographics of the 30th, and I hear that as the district, the actual district lines and redistricting. You look at it, we're talking about west of Leesburg all the way to the West Virginia border, and then down into Middleburg, close to, Front Royal, or just on the eastern side of Front Royal. That's good, rich Republican country. But some of these districts, on the way, we mentioned every candidate we had on, we said, explain what the district is, because they drew blue lines on it. You look at Danica Rome, who won that Senate seat. In Prince William County, Danica Rome lost, but because they carved out just enough of Manassas City, Danica Rome won. I mean, these were insidious lines that were drawn. Now, your district worked for you, but I think a lot of the losses we saw on Tuesday had to do with that, had to do with all the fudging of the borders.
Well, you got to know something else that was going on, too, and not just that race, but in my race. I mean, there was millions and millions of dollars dumped into these races from people out of state and from people out of the area. I mean, the gentleman I ran against, he had almost $2 million dumped into his race that we can see from the last report. Mm-hmm. That does not include all of the terribly nasty and ads were just outright falsehoods that were run by other groups that we don't even know who or where they were coming from, different environmental groups and everything else. So there was millions. The Northern Virginia area that we live in was ground zero, and the left was pouring millions of dollars into it. And it'll be interesting to see when it all plays out just how much money they did throw into that area.
That makes sense. I mean, I think I certainly up in this area, with all of the ads, particularly from Democratic candidates pivoting onto abortion. I don't know how much of an issue that was in your race, but going forward, how do you think conservatives can be thread the needle in terms of addressing this as an issue? Because it's going to come up in future races, particularly next election cycle.
I agree. One of the things that our campaign did early on was get out front on where we stood on that issue, that we were supporting the governor's 15-week pain threshold build so that they would not then be defining us as wanting to ban abortion and jail doctors and all this other madness that they talked about. But they drove that home in a lot of these areas, and people either didn't respond or didn't respond in time, and I think it made a difference. But we got out front. We put out 2 different mail pieces on that defining where I was. It was on the website, and I frankly didn't hear that much about it at the doors, and apparently the ads they were running didn't work either.
Geary Higgins is our guest. He won Tuesday. He's your new delegate-elect there, Loudoun County. And, you mentioned the money and being outspent, and you're right. Democrat spending in Virginia for the legislature races, they outspent Republicans $35 million to $27 million. Last night, I interviewed Ronna McDaniel, asked her about the Virginia results. She told us that she was told months ago that Governor Youngkin told her that they don't want any RNC involvement and they don't want RNC money. They've got enough money. Were you aware of that as one of the candidates? Do you think that's true? Would you have liked to have had an influx of money from the from the national party?
I've heard rumors of that. I don't know anything about that, Larry, and that's way above my pay grade, so I can't really comment on that at all. I received, when the chips got down and we saw what was being poured into my race by people outside, the caucus responded and helped me very much, and it was, I think, determinative in the end because we were able to answer all these crazy ads and crazy accusations. I will say one thing for the governor, and I've read some articles, and it's all the post-mortem and all the people that weren't in the races and weren't in the arena, as Theodore Roosevelt
and written by
said.
people who don't like Glenn Youngkin in the first place, let's face it.
Exactly. And I can tell you, I've been around politics in Northern Virginia a while. I have never had or seen the kind of support that came out of the governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general for this race. Did we win everything we wanted to win? No, but I've never seen it, and that's 3 Republican governors, and I don't know how many ever Democrat governors never seen that kind of support. So it wasn't for lack of effort, I can tell you that much.
Geary Higgins, delegate-elect. We'll look forward to hearing from you as the legislative process begins in January. Don't forget us now when you go down to Richmond. I know you won't.
Absolutely not.
All right, thank you. Congratulations. I said Loudoun County, by the way. Obviously, part of Fauquier County is also there, and I want to say it wasn't said enough on yesterday morning. Fauquier County held the line here. They held tight, they held firm, and they stayed right there with the Republicans. So they did a good job, Fauquier. It is 6:45. WMAL, traffic and weather. All right, so an interesting story coming out of the Vatican, and as a Catholic, you're starting to get used to interesting stories coming out of the Vatican. And as usual, you always have to dive a little deeper than the headline. Now, here's the Washington Post headline. Vatican says transgender people can be baptized. And on the face of it, that sounds like, wait, what? What? All right, so let me dive deep for you here. Transgender person, and I'm quoting now, may receive baptism under the same conditions as other faithful. All right, now, let me lay this out. The Catholic Church baptizes two types of people. Babies.
Yes.
And there's no such thing as a transgender baby, obviously. So
hopefully
let's be clear on that. Or an adult who is converted and decided that they want to become Catholic. Well, if you get baptized in the Catholic Church as an adult, you go through an entire process of training and instruction in the Roman Catholic Church, and you also then go to the sacrament of confession, where you are supposed to confess your sins and repent, which means all my sins are behind me. My sexual sins, my gluttonous sins, my prideful sins, all of my sins. I repent, and I have changed my ways. So by the letter of the law, one would suspect that before one becomes baptized into the church, you have moved on from the sins that you have just confessed. That is how anybody gets baptized into the church. Now, whether that's how priests will actually take this guidance is another question.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because the church doctrine, from what I understand, has not shifted on homosexuality. That is, it is still immoral and contrary to the Bible and to the faith. So if you continue to, in a homosexual lifestyle, then as a sinner, I mean, I don't know how you're going to be baptized. It's going to be interesting to see how the church reconciles this.
What you would do is if you have same-sex attraction, but you have lived a homosexual lifestyle, properly, you will have repented and then determined that despite your same-sex attraction, you will not commit fornication or any other sexual sins.
Yeah.
Moving forward after your baptism. So, you know, I again, sadly, with this Pope, he doesn't always speak in the clearest way. And so the headline is, the church is okay with transgenderism. No, the church is not okay with transgenderism.
So the question is, why now? What prompted this? Is this in response to a particular instance, or is this in response to pressure potentially from the LGBTQ community?
A little bit of that, and also just basic. There are pastors in churches who are confronted with this saying, what do I do? And sadly, it takes the church forever to come up with an action.
I mean, response.
This is a 2,000-year-old institution. It doesn't move very rapidly on things. And eventually this will get clarified in a more, let's say, infallible way.